Hello and welcome to Learn English with Podcast, a program for learners who want to speak English with confidence, clarity, and calm, without pressure or fear. In this episode, the language is delivered slowly and clearly to support careful listening and steady practice. The purpose is to allow listeners to follow easily, relax, and work on listening and speaking at the same time. This episode focuses on a topic that concerns many learners at the A2 to B1 level. Why having an English accent is not a problem, and why fluency and clarity are far more important than sounding like a native speaker. Many English learners feel stress or hesitation because of their accent. Some feel shy when they speak. Others worry about being judged or believe their English is not good enough because it does not sound British or American. These concerns are common and shared by millions of learners worldwide. The aim here is to reframe how learners think about their English and to encourage a more confident and balanced perspective. Having an accent is normal. It is not a problem, a mistake, or something that needs to be fixed. An accent simply reflects the fact that English was learned as a second language. Most English speakers around the world are not native speakers. English functions as a global language and is used by people from many linguistic and cultural backgrounds. Before continuing, it is helpful to pause briefly and reset. There is no requirement to be perfect or to sound like someone else. The primary goal is communication. An accent refers to the way words are pronounced. It is shaped by a speaker's first language, cultural background, and the sounds their mouth is accustomed to producing. Everyone has an accent, including native speakers. British English, American English, and Australian English all differ, and within a single country, accents vary by region. When someone says they have an accent, it is important to remember that this applies to all speakers. The relevant question is not whether an accent exists, but whether speech is understood. This is where clarity becomes essential. Clarity means speaking in a way that others can understand without difficulty. Perfect pronunciation is not required, nor is a native accent. What matters is that the message is conveyed clearly. This is entirely achievable at the A2 and B1 levels. Fluency is often misunderstood. It does not mean speaking quickly. Fluency refers to flow, the ability to continue speaking without frequent or prolonged pauses, and to express ideas without constant interruption. A fluent speaker may make grammatical errors and may have a noticeable accent, but communication remains effective. Communication, rather than perfection, is the purpose of language. Listening to this podcast already indicates a commitment to improvement. Many learners compare themselves to native speakers and conclude that they will never sound the same. That comparison is unnecessary. Sounding like a native speaker is not a requirement for effective communication. In everyday interactions, people focus on meaning rather than perfection. They respond to ideas, information, and intent. An accent does not prevent these elements from being shared or understood. English is not owned by native speakers. It is used globally in workplaces, education, travel, and online communication. In many cases, English is used between non-native speakers. In these contexts, overly strong native accents can sometimes reduce understanding, while clear, neutral speech improves it. Clear English supports effective communication. For this reason, the objective should not be to imitate a specific national accent, but to be understood with ease. Learners often express specific concerns. Some worry that others will laugh at their accent. In most cases, people are supportive, and negative reactions reflect the listener rather than the speaker. Speaking another language requires effort and confidence. Others feel embarrassed by pronunciation mistakes. Errors are a natural part of learning and occur even among native speakers, particularly in informal or fast speech. Another common belief is that an accent must be corrected before speaking more. This approach delays progress. Regular speaking is what leads to improvement. Effective speaking depends on several factors. Clear pronunciation of key sounds is important, but perfection is unnecessary. Emphasis on important words, audible speech, and steady pace contribute more to understanding than precise articulation of every sound. Simple sentence structure is also effective. Clear, direct sentences communicate ideas efficiently without requiring complex grammar. Confidence and calmness further support clarity. Speaking at a controlled pace allows listeners to follow more easily, and pauses do not reduce effectiveness. Mindset plays a significant role in language development. Reframing internal dialogue can reduce anxiety and encourage consistency. Viewing an accent as part of a learning journey, recognizing that improvement is ongoing, and understanding that practice leads to progress all support long-term development. Shadowing is a practical technique that supports fluency and clarity rather than accent elimination. It involves listening to spoken English and repeating it simultaneously, focusing on rhythm and stress. This process reduces reliance on translation and overthinking, allowing speech to become more natural. While accent may shift slightly over time, the primary benefits are improved flow and clearer delivery. Shadowing can be practiced with podcasts, short videos, or simple dialogues. Even a few minutes each day is effective when practiced consistently. In real-life communication, the objective remains understanding. Whether giving directions, ordering food, or explaining work, success is measured by whether the message is received accurately. For example, a sentence with imperfect grammar can still communicate meaning clearly. With continued practice, accuracy improves, but communication is the priority. Accent is also tied to identity. It reflects background and experience. Many people find accents engaging and distinctive. An accent does not indicate lack of intelligence. It indicates multilingual ability. Many respected professionals speak English with accents and are valued for their ideas rather than their pronunciation. Practical steps support steady improvement. Speaking English daily, even privately, reinforces familiarity. Reading aloud strengthens coordination between speech and comprehension. Shadowing audio develops rhythm and flow. Recording speech and listening without judgment increases awareness. The focus should remain on clarity rather than perfection. Apologizing for English ability is unnecessary. English proficiency develops through use, and ongoing practice leads to gradual improvement. Language learning requires time, but it does not require stress. Progress is supported by patience and consistency. As fear decreases, fluency increases. As confidence grows, clarity improves. Allowing oneself to speak without excessive self-criticism supports this process. Accent is not an obstacle to effective English use. Fear of judgment, mistakes, or inadequacy presents a greater challenge. Reducing this fear allows improvement to occur naturally. English does not require permission to be spoken. A perfect accent is not a prerequisite for legitimacy. English is a tool for communication and connection. With regular practice, listening and speaking without fear, fluency and clarity develop over time. Progress becomes visible in retrospect. As the conversation keeps flowing, you slowly begin to realize that the obsession with accent was never about communication at all. It was about fear, comparison, and the illusion of perfection. Because when you strip language down to its real purpose, English exists to transfer meaning, not to impress strangers with how closely you sound like someone born thousands of miles away. And this is where fluency quietly takes over while accent steps into the background, because fluency is not the absence of mistakes, but the presence of confidence, rhythm, and clarity. It is the ability to keep moving forward even when the sentence is not perfect. It is knowing how to recover when you forget a word, how to replace it with another, how to pause naturally instead of freezing, and how to stay connected to the listener instead of retreating into your head. And this is exactly why so many learners who chase accent end up silent, while those who chase communication end up speaking more every single day, because fluency grows through usage, not imitation, through repetition, not correction, and through consistency, not comparison. And when you listen to real conversations between non-native speakers from different countries, you will notice something powerful happening. Their accents are different, sometimes very different, yet the conversation works beautifully. Ideas are exchanged, emotions are shared, jokes land, opinions clash, and life moves forward without anyone stopping to analyze pronunciation, because real-world English does not operate inside textbooks or accent charts. It operates in meetings, cafes, online calls, airports, classrooms, and friendships, where clarity matters more than polish and connection matters more than perfection. And once this truth sinks in, your learning strategy changes automatically. You stop asking, "How do I sound?" and start asking, "Did they understand me?" And that shift alone removes half the pressure you've been carrying, because suddenly speaking English is no longer a performance. It becomes a tool. And tools are meant to be used, not admired. And this is where podcasts become incredibly powerful for learners at A2 B1 level, because podcasts expose you to natural English spoken at a human pace, with pauses, emotions, repetition, and real-life vocabulary, not exaggerated classroom sentences. And when you practice shadowing with podcasts, you are not copying an accent, you are absorbing rhythm, sentence structure, stress patterns, and flow, which are the real foundations of fluency, because accent is mostly about where your tongue and mouth sit, but fluency is about how your brain thinks in English, how quickly it connects ideas, and how smoothly it moves from one thought to another, and shadowing trains exactly that. It teaches your brain to stay in English longer without translating, to keep going even if you miss a word, to follow the music of the language rather than the exact pronunciation, and over time, something interesting happens. Your speech becomes clearer without you forcing it. Your pauses become more natural. Your confidence grows quietly, and people start responding to what you say instead of how you say it. And that is the moment when you know you are progressing in the right direction, because fluency reveals itself through ease, not effort, through calmness, not tension, and through consistency, not sudden perfection. And this is why 5-minute daily conversations can be more effective than hours of accent drills, because short, focused exposure builds habit, and habit builds fluency, and fluency builds confidence, which then feeds back into more speaking, creating a loop that keeps improving naturally. And when you stop fighting your accent, you free up mental energy to focus on vocabulary, sentence linking, storytelling, and expressing opinions, which are the real skills. People notice when you speak because no one remembers an accent. They remember clarity, confidence, and connection. They remember how easy it was to understand you, how comfortable they felt talking to you, and how naturally the conversation flowed. And this is especially important at the A2-B1 stage, where learners often feel stuck between knowing enough English and not feeling fluent, because this stage is not about refining sound. It is about expanding comfort, building automatic responses, and strengthening listening comprehension. And podcasts help here because they allow you to listen passively and actively. You can listen once for meaning, again for structure, and again for shadowing, each time training a different skill without overwhelming yourself. And when you do this daily, even for a few minutes, your brain starts predicting English, recognizing patterns, and responding faster. And that is fluency in action, not accent. And over time, your pronunciation will improve naturally as a side effect, because clarity comes from familiarity, not force. And this is why native speakers themselves have different accents, but communicate effortlessly, because they share rhythm, structure, and expectations, not identical sounds. And once you accept this, English stops feeling like a test and starts feeling like a living language you can step into whenever you want. And that mindset shift is often the biggest breakthrough for learners. Because confidence is not built by sounding perfect, it is built by surviving conversations, by finishing sentences even when they feel messy, by being understood even when grammar slips, and by realizing that mistakes do not stop communication, silence does. And the more you speak, the more you realize that people are far more interested in your ideas than your pronunciation. And this realization removes fear. And when fear leaves, fluency enters, because fluency thrives in relaxed minds, not anxious ones. And that is why your goal should never be to erase your accent, but to make your English clear, steady, and comfortable, because your accent is not a problem, hesitation is, confusion is, lack of exposure is, and podcasts address all of these by giving you constant contact with real English, spoken naturally, without judgment, without pressure, allowing you to grow at your own pace. And when you pair listening with shadowing, even lightly, even imperfectly, you are training your mouth to move while your brain stays engaged, creating muscle memory for speaking that textbooks can never provide. And this daily practice slowly transforms English from something you study into something you use, from something external into something internal. And one day, without any dramatic moment, you will realize that you are no longer translating every sentence. You are responding, reacting, agreeing, explaining, and continuing conversations without stopping. And that is fluency, not because your accent disappeared, but because your confidence arrived, and that confidence came from repetition, exposure, and acceptance, not correction. And this is the quiet truth that many learners never hear, that English does not belong to any one country or accent. It belongs to everyone who uses it. And the moment you stop trying to sound like someone else and start sounding like yourself in English, your speaking skills finally begin to grow naturally, steadily, and sustainably. And from that point forward, improvement becomes inevitable because you are no longer fighting the language. You are flowing with it. Language learning requires time, but it does not require stress. Progress is supported by patience and consistency. As fear decreases, fluency increases. As confidence grows, clarity improves. Allowing oneself to speak without excessive self-criticism supports this process. Accent is not an obstacle to effective English use. Fear of judgment, mistakes, or inadequacy presents a greater challenge. Reducing this fear allows improvement to occur naturally. English does not require permission to be spoken. A perfect accent is not a prerequisite for legitimacy. English is a tool for communication and connection. With regular practice, listening and speaking without fear, fluency and clarity develop over time. Progress becomes visible in retrospect. Thank you for listening to Learn English with Podcast. Continued practice supports continued improvement. English ability grows with use, and steady effort leads to lasting confidence.